Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So yeah, the Commissioner's Cup is coming up, and whether people want to admit it or not, things are starting to matter for the Indiana Fever. This is that point of the season where excuses begin to run out, expectations start getting higher, and every game suddenly feels a little more important. Now, we heard from the team's interviews today, and it's funny because there's still a portion of people out there saying, relax. Everything is fine. Look at the advanced stats. Look at the net rating. Look at the underlying numbers. And sure, some of those numbers may suggest that the Indiana Fever are in a better position than their record or recent performances indicate. But here's the problem. Sometimes basketball isn't about spreadsheets. Sometimes basketball is about watching the games. And if you've actually watched the games, you understand why there is concern. Even before some of these recent performances, you had Sophie Cunningham being brutally honest. You had Kelsey Mitchell being brutally honest. At one point, when the team was sitting at 4-2, neither player sounded particularly satisfied. In fact, Kelsey Mitchell was basically saying, "We're not good right now." That's not me saying it. That's not fans saying it. That's players inside the locker room recognizing that this team has not reached the standard they expect from themselves. And honestly, that's probably the most important thing to take away from all of this. The players know it, the coaches know it, the fans know it. Everybody can see that this team is still trying to figure things out. Now, one of the more interesting comments came from Sophie Cunningham when discussing some of the defensive issues. Because, let's be honest, defense has been a major problem. There have been too many breakdowns, too many missed assignments, too many moments where opposing teams seem to get exactly what they want. And when you're talking about a team with championship aspirations, that's a concern. It's not a great look for anybody. Not for the coaching staff, not for the veterans, not for the newer players, not for players like Sophie Cunningham, and not for players like Aaliyah Boston, and certainly not for a team that entered the season believing it could compete with the best teams in the league. Then we learned something else. Apparently, the Fever had a lengthy team meeting, a meeting that reportedly lasted around 2 hours and eventually became a players-driven discussion. And whenever I hear that, I immediately think one thing. Those meetings usually go two ways. There really isn't much middle ground. Either they bring everyone together and become a turning point, or they expose deeper frustrations that continue growing beneath the surface. I've seen it happen in sports countless times. A team gets together, everybody says what needs to be said, everyone clears the air, and suddenly the season changes. The chemistry improves, the effort improves, the communication improves, everything gets better. But I've also seen the opposite. I've seen meetings that felt productive in the moment, but accomplished absolutely nothing. And then the team goes right back out, loses badly, and the problems continue. That's why what happens next for Indiana is so important. The meeting itself doesn't matter nearly as much as the response afterward, because eventually the talking has to stop and the basketball has to improve. A lot of what was reportedly discussed centered around defense, but it wasn't just defense. There were concerns about offense, too. There were concerns about overall execution. There were concerns about consistency. And that's understandable, because despite some wins, this hasn't exactly been smooth basketball. The Fever have had stretches where they look fantastic, then they've had stretches where they look completely disconnected. And that's why fans are frustrated. Let's be real about it. The fans have every right to be frustrated. The players are frustrated. The coaches are frustrated. Nobody seems happy with where things currently stand. And honestly, that's probably a good thing, because if people were satisfied with this level of play, then there would be a much bigger problem. This team expects more from itself. Now, yes, they beat Portland comfortably, and a win is a win. Nobody is apologizing for winning basketball games. But at the same time, one comfortable victory doesn't automatically mean everything is fixed. The questions remain. Can this team defend consistently? Can they execute consistently? Can they stay connected when adversity hits? Those are the questions that matter. And then we get to the biggest factor in all of this, Caitlin Clark. Because whether people like it or not, Everything involving the Indiana Fever becomes amplified because of Caitlin Clark. Every win gets discussed nationally. Every loss gets discussed nationally. Every quote gets analyzed. Every disagreement gets analyzed. Every rotation decision gets analyzed. Everything becomes a story. And that's where things become difficult. Kelsey Mitchell made headlines when she said, "Our culture is being tested." Immediately, people started creating narratives. Immediately, people tried to connect it to Caitlin Clark. Immediately, people started suggesting there was some kind of divide. But if you actually listen to what Kelsey Mitchell said, that's not what happened at all. In fact, she specifically mentioned teammates like CeCe and Sophie Cunningham as positive influences during a difficult stretch. She talked about teammates helping each other through adversity. That's a completely different message than what some people tried to turn it into. So no, this wasn't Kelsey Mitchell blaming Caitlin Clark. Quite the opposite. Caitlin Clark was mentioned positively. Sophie Cunningham was mentioned positively. The focus was on teammates helping teammates.
But this situation does highlight something important. Being teammates with Caitlin Clark comes with enormous benefits, and it also comes with enormous pressure. There's no denying that Caitlin Clark is one of the biggest assets in basketball. The attention she brings, the excitement she brings, the talent she brings, those things are incredibly valuable. But there's another side to that reality. When things go wrong, everybody sees it. When a team struggles, everybody talks about it. When mistakes happen, they become headlines. When chemistry questions emerge, they become national discussions. That's simply the reality of playing alongside Caitlin Clark. Every normal issue gets magnified. Every rough patch becomes a major story. Every challenge becomes front-page news. And that's why Kelsey Mitchell's comments about culture are so important, because maintaining culture is difficult under normal circumstances. Maintaining culture when the entire basketball world is watching is even harder. Think about it. Players see social media. Players hear criticism. Players see headlines. Players know what's being said. Sophie Cunningham is active online. Other players are active online. They're aware of the conversations. They're aware of the debates. They're aware of the constant analysis surrounding this team. Nobody lives in a bubble. And when things aren't going well, that noise becomes even louder. That's why this current stretch could define the season. Not because of one game, not because of one quote, not because of one meeting, but because of how the Indiana Fever respond collectively. Do they come together? Do they improve defensively? Do they start playing with greater consistency? Do they turn this difficult period into a growth opportunity? Or do the problems continue? That's what we're all waiting to see. Because these long team meetings generally lead to one of two outcomes. Either they become the moment everyone points back to when the season turned around, or they become the moment everyone points back to when deeper issues became impossible to ignore. The good news for Indiana is that they still have time, they still have talent, they still have Caitlin Clark, they still have Kelsey Mitchell, they still have Sophie Cunningham, they still have Aaliyah Boston. There is more than enough talent in that locker room to get things back on track. The question is whether they can put it all together before these issues become bigger than they already are. So now I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about the Indiana Fever? Do you think this team meeting helps the team? Do you think the culture is being tested exactly the way Kelsey Mitchell described? And most importantly, who do you think is going to win the 2026 Commissioner's Cup? Let me know your thoughts down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more basketball coverage. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.